Hello and welcome to the Kentucky Today podcast. I'm Lawrence Smith, the editor of Kentucky Today, and alongside, as usual, Mark Maynard, the managing editor of Kentucky Today, and our content editor, Chip Hutchison. And also joining us today, a very special guest, Ron Crow, who's the director of Kentucky Baptist Disaster Relief. He's been a very busy man this year, especially this past few days with that terrible tornado that caused so much destruction and even death in part of our state, down in the Somerset and London parts of our state. Ron, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time. First of all, if you would just kind of summarize the Kentucky Baptist disaster response to what happened down there in South Central Kentucky.
Obviously, we were paying attention to the storms as they were coming in and started getting reports of exactly what happened. And so we began to mobilize with a lot of the logistical support going into this. And so we knew that Somerset and London in particular were some of the hardest hit areas. And so we began to get boots on the ground and assessors there right away and to assess the situation. And so currently we are set up at Corinth Baptist Church there in London with our operation, and we're primarily doing chainsaw recovery. And right now we have about 60 plus volunteers on the ground that are serving right there. We've got some heavy equipment that's helping with some of those areas. We're not necessarily doing the debris. We're primarily focused on the chainsaw recovery and getting the trees and debris out of there. So we're working there. We also have teams in Somerset, and they're doing the same thing. We were at the Lake Cumberland Association building and visited with Tommy Floyd, and so they've got their place cleaned up pretty well. But we also have some chainsaw teams on the ground in the Somerset area and some assessors on the ground. So there's probably going to be more work there as well. But in the midst of all of this, we're still doing some flood recovery in Oak Grove, Kentucky, and there's still some needs there. Some homes have been underwater for 32 days, and so we're finally able to get in there. So we have teams in Oak Grove that's doing flood recovery. And that's just off the backside of coming off the flood recovery in Frankfort. So we have been very, very busy in the last several weeks.
Now, are you also doing some feeding down there in the Somerset, London area? You have feeding teams down there?
We were working with the Salvation Army for a couple of days, providing about 200 meals twice a day for a couple of days. But that's the most public feeding we were doing. We are doing feeding our volunteers, and obviously anyone who comes by looking for a meal, we're always willing to prepare that for them. But as far as the public feeding, that's been very minimal this time. So we're staying pretty busy.
You mentioned that you're also doing flood relief. Talk about the difference between flood relief and cleaning up after a tornado like the one that hit in down south of us.
Well, what's interesting about the difference is, when you show pictures of a tornado like we've just witnessed, obviously many homes have been destroyed. The whole home is spread out all over acres of land, and so you see all the debris that's destroyed homes and trees, and so it's very visual. When you look at flood recovery, you can drive through neighborhoods and you're not 100% sure which homes have been affected or not, and you have to really look closely for a flood line. Some of those homes in Frankfort, for example, had 4, 5, 6, 7 feet of water in them. But driving through the neighborhood, you just don't see the destruction like you do in a tornado response. So, but the devastation is still there. And so the chainsaw recovery, we're pretty much in their yards and cleaning that up. In a flood recovery, we're in their homes, and we're pulling out personal property and tearing out drywall, pulling up floors. And so we spend a lot of time inside the home, and both are very devastating. And we also look for opportunities to love on the people, share with them the love of Jesus, and look for those ministry opportunities and especially gospel conversations. Both are very hard work, very much needed, but they do look very different.
How long will your teams be down there?
We always say, we get that question a lot, how long will we be here? As long as the work is there, as long as we have volunteers, or when we run out of money. And so that's kind of thing. And I will say our Kentucky family has been generous, and so the funds are coming in. Those are needed. It takes a lot of, between the fuel and the food and the various things. It's an expensive operation, but our Kentucky Baptist family has been very generous. And so, as right now, the volunteers are still coming, and so we're very grateful for those volunteers. Many of these have been out multiple weeks this year alone, and it's just humbling to see how much of their lives they're giving up to love on people they don't even know.
You mentioned the chaplains, and I know one priority for all the volunteers is sharing the gospel. Do you have any stories yet, or have you heard anything from the teams there about the kind of response they're getting to the gospel presentations?
Obviously, these people are very devastated. I mean, when you look and see your life was just about over on this earth. I met a gentleman in Mount Victory on Saturday. He was in his home in one of the hardest hit areas, and he survived without a scratch. His family was gone, but he was the only one there. But one of the interesting things was his neighbor and him had not gotten along for many years, and the first tornado came through, and their home was severely damaged. His home was pretty much destroyed. He ran to that neighbor and said, come and get in the cistern with me, because the second tornado was taking the same path. And so they got in the cistern together and survived the second tornado that came through that same night. And so we're just praying that brings about a relational healing in that regard. So, but we've had opportunity to share the gospel and love on people. During the flooding, we met one lady, 68 years old, who had never owned a Bible in her life. And so our teams were able to give her her very first Bible. Her daughter was standing there too, and she had never owned a Bible. So we were able to give mother and daughter both the very first Bible they've ever owned in their life. And so we see stories like this often. And many of these I don't get to hear, but our teams are experiencing them every day.
That's incredible. As you said, it's been a very busy year. I think you mentioned before when I've heard you speak that you've had volunteers out about every week since January of this year. I'm going to give you a chance to brag on those volunteers for a minute.
Oh, they're incredible, just absolutely incredible. We actually kind of had the Christmas holiday off, but come January 1st, the storms were coming in, and so we were already kind of in that deployment mode, and we were doing some relief work there. But we have been on full deployment since the second week of February, somewhere in Kentucky or in Missouri. We've been to Missouri. We've had 6 significant disasters already this year, and responding to over 20 communities that we've been in. Maybe more than that, I've lost count, but we've had some historic disasters. Some of these people have been out 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks this year, going a week at a time or more. And I know a couple of different people that were on the ground for 3 straight weeks. And that's a long time. They would take the weekend off and kind of rest, but they were in the field 3 to 4 weeks at a time. So these people are just absolutely incredible when you think about how busy our lives are, appointments that you have, family and so forth, but they're giving up their time to help people they don't know because they feel called to this ministry. They love the Lord, and they're just passionate about helping and seeing the difference that it makes in the lives of people. So they have been absolutely incredible. So. And the hard part this year has been it's been so widespread across the state, from Henderson and McLean County to Bowling Green to Oak Grove to London, Somerset. We've been all over the state, Frankfort and so forth. So it's been a lot of moving pieces this year, but a lot of ministry has happened and loving on a lot of people, making a difference.
And I know you can always use more people. So how can people become trained to volunteer with Kentucky Baptist Disaster Relief?
What's interesting is we hear some of these new people that come and join the ministry, and one of the things they say after their first deployment, we're surprised, we're amazed how well organized this ministry is. It's not just getting a group of people and going, and that's why we do the training that we have, and it's a quality training. So if you go to our website at kybaptist.org/dr, all of our training information is there. We have 2 fall trainings coming this year in Campbellsville and Bowling Green, and so those will be the final trainings for 2025. But they can sign up and be part of this. We don't say you're joining a ministry, you're joining a family, because it really is a family ministry. We develop relationships of brothers and sisters in Christ that are very strong bonds. But the beauty is there's always room for more, and we need those volunteers. And the new volunteers are bringing so much talent and skill and ability to this. And so God is really blessing this ministry, and we're honored. But we would love to have more volunteers.
And you mentioned the strong giving to disaster relief by Kentucky Baptists, and we're all grateful for that. So how else, obviously by giving, how else can Kentucky Baptists help?
Obviously, we always say pray. We need your prayers for our safety. And, chainsaw in particular is dangerous and running heavy equipment. So your prayers for our safety and praying for those survivors as well. And so prayers are very important. And we say everyone can pray. And then most can give, and just giving financially to help support. You've got the cost of food, just like it is at home. Food prices have gone up, so that's increasing the expenses, fuel, and all the things, repairs on equipment, and so those are things that are needed. So financially, but we also like to receive gift cards, and what we do with the gift cards is we give those to the local pastors in those affected areas, and then the local pastor can give them to homeowners as a touch point with a local connection to the local church, because I believe in the local church. And so those are some of the main things that are most helpful to us. Sometimes we have specific requests that we put out, but those are the two main ones that we like to use. And then in the rebuild process, we have some Kentucky Care funds that we are able to help with some of our churches and some community rebuilds to help people rebuild. So even the giving can continue on beyond our disaster response.
And of course, undergirding all of this is the cooperative program, which we're grateful for. It makes this ministry possible. Talk about the importance of the cooperative program to what you're able to do.
We can do so much more together than we can ever do independently. And so whether it's $10, $100, or $1,000, as people pool all that together, it adds up. But not only financially, and that's so important that we do, as we pool our financial resources together. But what I love about this ministry too, it models in a physical way the cooperative program, because now we have people coming from multiple communities, multiple churches, associations coming together. And when I mentioned 60 plus volunteers on the ground now, that's not from just one church. That's from multiple churches all across the state of Kentucky coming together. And that's really what illustrates the cooperative spirit of Southern Baptist. We're coming together for one purpose, and when everybody does a little, and as God blesses, it becomes a lot. And like the song says, little is much when God is in it, and we see that really happen through the cooperative spirit of Kentucky Baptist.
Amen to that. Ron, thank you so much. God bless you and your ministry, your family, and we'll continue to pray for you and for your volunteers and for those impacted by this disaster and others that are sure to come in our futures until Jesus tarries. Thanks so much again. Nice talking to you.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Mark, you have been on top of this story from the start. So kudos to you. Your coverage, I think, has been better than really any secular media outlet. So great job keeping up with that. And the stories that you have been doing are informative and some heartbreaking. But talk about kind of what you've seen, the stories you've done, and what has struck you about this.
Yeah, all these, I remember the 21, tornado in West Kentucky and the damage it did there. And you talk to these people, and I mean, it's the worst day of their life. It's the worst thing that's ever happened to them. You lose your home, you lose lives. And of course, that's the biggest thing when someone has lost a loved one through this. And we have had 19 people who have died from the damages of this tornado last Friday night. And this one was, a lot like in 21 in that it came overnight. And it's worse when that happens. I know they were watching. It was midnight. So I don't know how many people were actually in bed. They were probably all glued to the TV, trying to if they could even get service on their TV. But but the other thing that strikes me is neighbors helping neighbors, and we saw that a lot as well. And I know they're thankful. Certainly, we're all thankful for Kentucky Baptist Disaster Relief, and other organizations that came out to help as well. And they will be there for a while.
One story you did that I found very interesting was one on first-time volunteers and how awestruck they were at the family they had joined, but also the work that had to be done.
Yeah, it was interesting what he said there about it being well organized. That's one thing they said. They said we couldn't believe how they had everything down pat. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew what they were going to have you do, and it wasn't just a lot of people just kind of getting together and say, well, you go over and do that or you do that. No, there's already a plan in place. But the other thing was the family, and once you get one of those guys or ladies to come and participate in the disaster relief, you've got them hooked, and they'll probably be back for more. And that's kind of what happens with it. And I think that it's people, majority who are retired, because those people, have a little more time on their hands, I guess. But a lot of them are saying, I wish I'd done this before. I wish I was able to do this. Some of them said, I wanted to do this. Now I have the time. I'm going to try to make up for lost time. But they were also encouraged by how they share the gospel together. One lady had said, I forget, I think it was a different tornado, but she had to go in and tell the family who had died. Someone had died, and she was the first one to talk to them. And she was a chaplain, and everything they do, it's not by happenstance. They are all trained. You go to these trainings, it's not just a big picnic. You actually are trained on every aspect. Whatever aspect you want to get into, there's a training for that. So they don't just send people out and say, hey, let's all meet over at Joe's and we'll get a few trucks together and we'll have down, and I've seen some churches who have done that. And, I'm not saying that doesn't help. It probably does. But this is a very well organized and well thought out plan. They know how to do things quickly, and they know how to do things efficiently. And I think that's the thing. They have so much that they're dealing with. And the flood recovery is much different than what he's doing now, the chainsaw and debris. You got to know how to work that heavy equipment, and not everybody can do that. They don't have too many that can do that, to be honest, but they have people who bring out their chainsaws and, they're cutting branches, they're doing all that. And you have a lot of that. You see some of these pictures. I saw a picture of where the storm went through the Daniel Boone Forest, and it looks like a lumber yard or something. I mean, it just snapped those trees down, and you see these pictures of taking away houses, and the strength of this thing. It's unbelievable, really. One
more thing, Mark, before we leave this, and I've got to give kudos, this U of L fan, to Mark Pope, the University of Kentucky basketball coach. Our Keith Taylor did a story on Mark Pope going there and actually physically helping with the restoration.
Yeah, he had two of his daughters that went as well with him, and Mark Pope, he genuinely loves Kentucky. I don't think there's any question about that. They get a picture of him on the roof of a house. The guy's 6'10". He could probably reach up from the ground and pull much of those branches off. But he's on the roof of this house, taking branches off the roof. And the person that took the picture asked him, would it be okay if I put this on social media? Which I thought was actually pretty nice of him to do. They didn't have to do that. And he said, well, only if you say that more people need to come and help. We're Kentuckians, and when one of our neighbors hurts, we all hurt. He wasn't doing it to glorify himself or to say, look at me, look what I'm doing. I really don't think he was. I think he wanted to be there to help. And Reed Shepherd, former UK player for a year, and of course that's his home area there. He went to North Laurel High School. And Reed Shepherd was there over the weekend, and they had pictures of him with the wheelbarrow and carrying things, and good for him that he thought enough to come out and do that. And people were, it's going to be a celebrity type thing. Of course, people are going to take pictures of him and write stories and things like that. But again, I don't think either one of those men did that for that reason. They don't need publicity. They both have plenty of publicity. It's about. It's about helping Kentuckians, and I think that was good to see. He could have he could have given, and probably did, given a lot of money to something. He probably is doing that as well. But to actually physically be there and to physically be on a roof, wow! I mean, that's pretty impressive, I think.
I think you're right. So we're going to move on from this, except to say this, that tomorrow, our videographer, Frank Pierre, who's also the producer of this podcast, he and I are going to the London area to shoot some video, which we will have on Kentucky Today. So our coverage will continue as the folks down there continue to dig out and put their lives back together after this terrible tornado. But the coverage so far has been excellent.
Lawrence, one thing I read the other day is that since 2020, there have been 19 disasters enough that a state of emergency was called by the governor, and that is a lot. And I think about our disaster relief people. They have been at every one of them. They, whether it's a flood or tornadoes or just straight line winds. We had a lot of straight line winds. We've had ice storms. I mean, and it's kind of interesting because that's about when Ron Crow came. So he's been a magnet for the weather, I think, for the bad weather, it seems. But I'm thankful that we have such a great team of people with Kentucky Baptist Disaster Relief, and I love talking to them. I've done stories on them for many years since I've been here, actually, and it's some of the favorite things I've ever done.
Chip, I wanted to bring you into this real quick. Just give me your thoughts on the work that Kentucky Baptists are doing to support and also do disaster relief.
Well, it is phenomenal, as Mark said, a group of dedicated people to volunteer to leave their comforts of their home to people who have undergone tremendous loss. What a blessing to people, and it truly exemplifies what the Bible teaches us about loving our neighbor. And we cannot thank those volunteers enough for their willingness to go and the frequency now that they're having to go. And it's traumatic. We had that message yesterday from Keith Taylor, who had gone to London and had seen all the damage and talked about how heartbreaking it is. And I know when the tornado hit in western Kentucky and Princeton back in 2021, especially when you know the people and you know where their house stood, and then you see that's gone, and the hurt that you have and the sense of loss, the grief that you have, and to know that here are people who are strangers to those going into communities they're not really familiar with, for them to give of themselves, what a blessing that is. And certainly giving to Kentucky Baptist through the cooperative program, and that some of that money going to disaster relief, there's money that is well spent. And so thank you, Kentucky Baptist, for your willingness to give through the cooperative program.
Indeed. Moving on from that, we're always excited to hear when Kentucky Baptist churches are thriving and growing, and our prayer is that all our Kentucky Baptist churches thrive, as well as our Kentucky Baptist pastors. You did a story on the growth of one church that's been so substantial they're having to build onto it. So talk about what's happening at 9th and O.
Yes, 9th and O Baptist Church in Louisville, of course, was founded in back in the early 1900s, 1909, I believe, relocated years ago to Breckenridge Lane. They had groundbreaking Sunday evening for 25,000 square foot addition. Now, churches, we hear periodically that have building plans. This one is unique in that it is fueled by a rapid and extensive growth in its discipleship ministry. And 9th and O will run, I think, 700 or so on a Sunday morning services. This is what's remarkable, and it's unheard of. I think it's unprecedented. They will have 90 to 95% of those people who are in Sunday morning worship services are also involved in a Sunday school Bible study group. Most churches I know a lot of churches, they're content if they have 50 to 60%. Virtually everybody that's in Sunday morning worship is in a Bible study. On Wednesday night, which is a sparse night in many of our Kentucky Baptist churches, they'll have 60 to 65% of the people who are there on Sunday morning will be back for Bible study, for small group fellowships where they study books of the Bible. That is about 500 people on campus. What that has resulted in is that they're having classes in every classroom, every office. They're even having classes meet out in hallways. So this expansion will provide for many more classrooms, much more meeting space, and some other things, a large gym area for athletic activities, but then large church gatherings. Remarkable. They had a $3.75 million goal that they set up over a year ago. They've already collected $2 million toward that goal. So it is a great story about a church that is intent and has a very disciplined program on discipleship, making sure that once people are saved, they know there's more than just sitting in the pew. There is growing in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord, and they do that. One of the things they do about their small groups I found interesting is men with men, women with women, and is intergenerational. And I think that's what we've lost in many churches, because you like to have people of your same age group, your same life situation, but they mix that up. And Dr. Bill Cook, who is the lead pastor since 2001 there, has said when you do that, it results in silos. In other words, I would use the term cliques or groups that they have an affinity for each other, but not with the rest of the church body. So these intergenerational classroom groups has been a real factor in the growth and discipleship growth at Ninth and Old Baptist Church.
Good story. Good to see that. Guys, we're already close to running out of time. Only about 5 minutes left, so let's do the rest of these kind of in a lightning fashion, a line or two about each one. Mark, your story on a Kentucky Baptist pastor who closed out his Army chaplain career in a terrific fashion.
Yes, Tyler Shields, who's actually the pastor at First Baptist Church in Barberville, has been in the Army Reserves for 20 years. The last 10 years he's been a chaplain, and he's obviously shared the gospel many times with them. He'd never had a chance to baptize, and this was his last deployment. He was retiring, and he was in Trinidad and Tobago, and he was able to baptize 9 soldiers in the North Atlantic Ocean. And what a way to end a great career with the service. And I thank him for his service to our country and to our Lord. And just a great day for him.
What a way to end. That's great. The Kentucky Baptist Foundation launching what is calling the Seed Project, about getting Bibles into people's hands, right, Mark?
That's right. And, there's no catch to it. It's really interesting. If you're a Bible school, if you're having a Bible school, all you got to do is get in touch with the Kentucky Baptist Foundation, kybaptistfoundation.org/seed, and they will send you Bibles. So every kid who goes to Vacation Bible School will get a Bible. And they are the Lifeway Research has come alongside them and is helping to cut some of the cost. But they're already in the thousands of Bibles that are going to these kids, and not just kids. If you have a youth group, if you have an adult group, you just call them and tell them, hey, I need 20 Bibles, I need 50 Bibles, I need 100 Bibles, and you will get them. And Dr. Prince Harmon is the president of that, and he said we are in the job of the Great Commission, and what a better way than to provide people with the Word of God.
Our Baptist campus ministries across the state do a great job on their various campuses, and we often hear about kind of the hostility to biblical Christianity on college campuses, but our Western Kentucky University College ministry was actually honored, right, Mark, for its work on campus.
They were honored by the College Heights newspaper, the student newspaper there, and in the category of they were the non-Greek clubs or whatever, and it was the best of the hill is what they call it, and they were number one. They won the grand prize for that, And they do a great job of sharing the gospel on campus, but they want them involved in all campus life, and they do a lot of that with homecoming and with different things. It's more than just this one thing where we're going to witness to you, we're going to do this, we're going to experience college campus life. They do that. They do it in a Christian way. And kudos to Tommy Johnson. He's been there. This is his 21st year. And Tommy's actually the head of all of our Baptist campus ministry groups. And they just, I can't say enough good things about all those guys. They all work so hard and do such a great job. But kudos to Tommy and the Hilltoppers for being, just for them getting that kind of recognition is really special, I think. And that's the second time they've won it, by the way.
It really is. Quick story that we have coming up this weekend. You'll see it. A video story that Frank Pierre and I did. Frank went to Chile, and we have a partnership, the Kentucky Baptist Convention, with the International Mission Board and Baptist churches in Chile. And we did a story on some of the work that's being done down there, specifically in alcohol and drug rehabilitation, and the work that's being done and how Kentucky Baptists can help even more get done down there in Chile. So watch for that coming up this weekend. But I want to end with you, Chip. We're coming up on Memorial Day. You are a military veteran, so I want you to close us by just talking about Memorial Day.
Well, Memorial Day, originally called Decoration Day, started right after the Civil War, is to honor those who have given their lives, men and women who have given their lives in military service to defend this country and preserve our freedoms. I am concerned that in a society that becomes increasingly distant from our nation's history, our founding fathers were, the majority of them, some people say they were deists, which a deist thinks God looks down but does not intervene in the affairs of men. That's not true. That's not, I don't think, what is true of our founding fathers. And I think this is a time for us to honor those who have given their lives. A survey that I saw said only 38% of people in America realized that it was to honor the fallen soldiers who have served this country. And that's what it is. It's not Veterans Day. It's Memorial Day. And I look back and the story that we have that will be posted in the next few days is about those founding fathers and their passion for Christianity and for this country to be a Christian nation. I'll finish very quickly one story. Valley Forge, where the soldiers their homes had been taken over by the British troops. They were cold. Many of them did not have shoes, clothing, and every day Washington would walk among the troops and he would find 12 to 20 of his soldiers dying every day. And he said this one day, he said, it's important to be a patriot, but it's more important to be a Christian. That's the kind of heritage that we have. You don't read those things in the history books anymore. So hopefully we'll point out the faith background and the faith link to our founding fathers, and to give us a greater appreciation for those soldiers. Over 1.4 million is the estimate from Revolutionary War days on up till today, who have given their lives in defense of our country. So let's celebrate and give homage to those soldiers who have given their all to preserve the freedoms, including the freedom of religion, that we so embrace today.
Chip, thank you so much. Thank you for your service. Thanks to my father, who's an Air Force veteran, all those who have served, but all those whose families are still suffering the effects of the fact that their loved ones gave their lives for, as you said, the freedoms that we enjoy. So I hope everyone really has a meaningful, and I want to say happy, but meaningful Memorial Day weekend. That's it for us. Thanks for tuning into the Kentucky Today podcast. For more, go to KentuckyToday.com. And for more on the Kentucky Baptist Convention, go to kybaptist.org. Lord willing, we'll see you next time on the Kentucky Today podcast.